Stories making the headlines, and I still have my co-hosts here in the studio to look through the pages of the papers. Let me just run through the headlines, and I begin with the Nation newspaper. And the major headline there says, how we are using cash from subsidy removal by Tinubu. The sub-headlines there, infrastructure, human capital getting attention. Akpabio Abbas shunning audit queries summons affront to democracy. Those are the stories you find on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And then we move over to the front page of the Daily Independent. And this time around, it's looking at fuel subsidy cut savings are being reinvested. That's what the president is saying. And the writers there says assures of commitment to transparency, fiscal prudence, as lawmakers demand stronger oversight, accountability. All right, away from the Daily Independent now, we move over to the Hope newspaper. And anxiety as new bill strips 63 MDAs of revenue collection power. FAN, NCAA, NAMA to depend on federal allocations. Expert warn of operational funding setbacks. That's the headline there on the front page of the Hope newspaper. To the Guardian newspaper now. All right, let me quickly get that out. All right, fiscal inefficiencies erode Naira's prospect despite weakening dollar. Fiscal inefficiencies erode Naira's prospect despite weakening dollar. And then we move over to the Platform Times. The Platform Times is next. Let me quickly get that out. The Platform Times, right. Trump threatens Nigeria with additional 10% tariff over BRICS alignment. All right, that happened when the president went for the BRICS meeting, and we see that Donald Trump is trying to threaten countries that are aligning with the BRICS with a 10% tariff increase. And the next is the Daily Trust newspaper. The Daily Trust newspaper is next, and the headline there, 23 months after queues persist as CNG dispensing points, at CNG dispensing points. We'll be talking about that. To the front page of this Nigeria newspaper, that's the next paper there. Aftermath of President's order, NAF airstrikes hit terrorist hideouts in Borno, Mandara Mountain, scores killed. That's what you find on the front page of this Nigeria newspaper. To the front page of the Blueprint now. The Blueprint is next, and it says, no going back on nuclear test ban in Nigeria. Vice President Shettima is saying that, says judiciary central to strong, vibrant capital market, be consistent in court rulings. SEC boss charges judges. That's the story, the headline you find on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. The Punch newspaper is next. And it says, July flood alert, 20 states at risk despite 620 billion naira intervention. NIMET forecast flooding in Lagos, Edo, Benue, 17 others in July. States face scrutiny over 620 billion naira ecological fund. We've been talking about that for quite some time now. The Nigeria News Direct is next. Let me quickly get that out. Nigeria News Direct. And it says, Tinubu, Makinde, Abiodun others mourn as Olubadan of Ibadan land dies at 90. Olubadan's legacy of harmony, progress will outlive his reign. Makinde is said as saying, as ex-governor Ladoja poised to become 44th Olubadan. All right, the next paper here is the Leadership newspaper. And the major story here says, Kano Emirate tussle, my palace gates breached by Bayero supporters, Emir Sanusi. The rider there, innocent citizens injured, incident unfortunate. That's what the state government is quoted as saying. Police, Emir Bayero keep mum. All right, interesting developments regarding that. And finally is the front page of the Sporting Live. Here, summer transfer, AC Milan tempts Boniface with 53.9 billion naira, and some other stories there. But as usual, we'll begin with the Nation newspaper, Etoma.
Yeah.
How we are using cash from subsidy removal by Tinubu, that's the president. And quickly, he is talking about how he's been going about the removal of fuel subsidy and what the monies are being used to do. Because a lot of person has been questioning and talking about the fact that May the 29th declaration changed everything.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people and even states are yet to recover as a result of that statement. But here he is giving an account of what is being done with those monies.
Yeah, and there are still some people that say, how am I sure you're saying the truth? You know, there are people here, a lot of people are still saying, how am I sure you're saying the truth? You see, when I don't know if I should mention names, but when you are doing something with a special fund, for example, you are tiring a road with a special fund, it will be nice for you to have a signpost that says this road is funded by this. We are Nigerians, we like seeing it. Yes, we want to see it. When the federal government was taking loans from Sukuk, which is interest-free, which is the interesting part of Sukuk loans, is that it's interest-free, completely interest-free. Where they use the loan to do a road, you see that Sukuk funded. You have to have it. So, Mr. President, going forward, maybe we should start doing those.
But states are getting the allocations
yes.
And we've been talking about, over the past few weeks, we've been looking at developments from the FCT, for instance. It dominated the papers, and we kept talking about it and how it's important that these forms of infrastructure development matter and address the need of the people directly.
And the beautiful thing, Veronica, is that if, you know, the fuel subsidy is removed, of course, we expected it to go into infrastructure and better things to better Nigeria. It's not like we are surprised that this is what you're using it for. That is what it ought to be used for. But then again, sometimes we need transparency, because we are Nigerians. Is our money at some point? We will ask, you know, what is it used for? Is it really used for this? Because we've seen how corruption gets into so many things. So I do not blame Nigerians trying to ask that, you know, is this money really used for what you're saying you're going to use it for? Of course, we've seen infrastructure in FCT. We've given them their accolades. We've seen what's happening in Abia State. Like, we've seen that things are really happening, but I think that more transparency should just be given. So let's see that these are what this money is used for. And Etoma, what you said, it's funny, but it will make sense.
Oh, it
like, put it there.
Now, back to you, Etoma. When we are talking about transparency and accountability, we know that the governors are getting more of these funds. Shouldn't we be holding the governors to account?
I wonder why we are not holding the governors to account. We should call one governor's name and then we say this and this and this is what he's done. You know, I think we should start something like that. But the governors are the ones that can make this development reach the people.
Absolutely.
They are really close to them.
Let's quickly race on now to the front page of the Daily Independent. Still talking about fuel subsidy costs. Okay, we have spoken about that. And we'll move over then to the Hope newspaper, saying anxiety as new bill strips 63 MDAs of revenue collection power. FAN, NCAA, NAMA to depend on federal allocation. Experts warn of operational funding setbacks. We know that the new tax reform bill has ensured that we now have a single revenue collection system where everybody now have to go there when it comes to, in terms of talking about taxation and all of it. And here we are seeing that most MDAs, 63 of them, will no longer have that power to collect revenue, and so will now be depending on government for allocation. From your perspective, especially when you look at the airports, because that's one of them as well, how much impact do you think this would have, Ria? Quickly.
No, but so what I want to say on this is, because these revenues, normally they were supposed to be paid to one organization, if I'm correct. So why are they saying that they don't want to pay to the organization?
No, they are not saying they are not paying. I'm saying that it is now one system for collection of this revenues. All of them usually collected revenue, but now it's no longer going to them. But I think
this will help for transparency, and this will help for the accountability that we've always asked for.
Yes, but it will also introduce some kind of funding issues for those MDAs.
That's where the bottleneck lies.
Yes, that's where it lies, because when those MDAs were receiving these monies on behalf of the federal government, they had the privilege of borrowing from there when they need cash.
Needed cash, but right now they have to depend on government.
To depend on government.
But would this not help for better accountability?
Yeah, it will. It will. You know, the first day this thing came up, I said that is what I call plugging holes.
Exactly.
You know, it will help. We're going to see more cash in the kitty and so on. All right. However, Nigeria has had problems funding MDAs, funding agencies.
Well, that's
and so
why
on.
a number of persons have talked about we need to cut down on the numbers of these MDAs. That what are they really doing? Duplicity of their efforts and efficiency, and that some of them are replicating what other MDAs are doing. And so it's important that we now start narrowing it down to perhaps ensure efficiency at the end of the day. But we need to quickly race on now because of time. We'll move quickly to the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Fiscal inefficiencies erode Naira's prospect despite weakening dollar. Still talking about all of the matters that we had raised earlier on. And then we move over to the Platform Times. The Platform Times is next. Let me quickly get that. I'm sure this story interests you, Etoma, because you mentioned it earlier. Trump threatens Nigeria with additional 10% tariff over BRICS alignment. And you know that because China is there, Russia is there, you know the relationship between these countries and the US. And so perhaps he's now saying, okay, all of your allies, we are going to threaten them with a 10% tariff increase because they are aligning with you. But quickly, let me get your perspective on this.
When Donald Trump was in elementary school, he was a bully.
You know, he can sue you for that.
Well, the 10% tariff increase is really going to hurt Nigeria. I see that happening. And so how do we cushion the hurt that it will bring? That is the more pertinent question for me. I would say, if he does it, you do it too, because America buys from us, we buy from America. So if he increases tariff, increase
reciprocity.
Finish.
And I know we already have 14%. So adding with 10% is going to make it really difficult for Nigerians to do business.
Quickly, we move over to the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, and this is talking about insecurity and how we are addressing it. The aftermath of President's order, NAF airstrikes hit terrorist hideouts in Borno, Mandara Mountains, scores killed. We see that we are making effort at addressing the matter of insecurity. But what's your take on this?
And when you talk about that Mandara Mountains, like, it's very difficult to even get through. So it's beautiful to see that now this terrorist, the place has been put down and it was successful. We've been speaking about insecurity, and I love to hear news that these people that are perpetrating and doing these actions are being taken down. So this is a beautiful one for me. All
right, the front page of the blueprints, no going back on nuclear test ban in Nigeria. Shetima, the vice president, is just talking about our stance on matters of nuclear tests and weapons and all of it, because we've seen other countries, you know, using that against other countries. And yes, he's saying this is where we stand regarding this matter. So we'll move swiftly now to the front page of the Punch newspaper. A story that really bothers me, Etoma, talking about the July flood alert. 20 states at risk despite 620 billion naira intervention, talking about the ecological funds. Yet we are not seeing climate resilience in these countries. We've seen what happened in Mokwa. We've seen what happened in Bayelsa. We've seen what happened in several states. The level of flooding, despite these monies, what are we doing with it?
The bright side is that NIMET is proactive now. They are bringing the warnings and they are making it very loud.
They've been doing that.
Yes, but not as loud as it is sounding right now, you know. And the sad side is the 620 billion ecological fund that has been voted for this, and we are not seeing actions. Number 3 part of it is it has to do with when it comes down to evacuating people, we're going to have problems.
And you know, I would say that I thought that Mokwa will have taught us a lesson, and we say we don't want any disaster again. I thought we learned from that. And talking about NIMET, I think that is something they have been doing, and I feel like more can be done even with them, because look at the amount of monies. Imagine we wake up another morning and hear that another flood has wiped people out again. And we know that we're in the rainy season.
Our time is almost up, so I need us to race on quickly. Nigeria News Direct is next. Tinubu Makinde Abiodun orders mourn as Olubadan of Ibadan land dies at 90. Olubadan's legacy of harmony progress will outlive his reign. That's what the governor Makinde is saying. Recall that the Olubadan passed yesterday. Well, they say, as they say in Yoruba, he joined his ancestors. And so he just spent just a year on the throne. And here we have people eulogizing him. And they are saying now that ex-governor Ladoja is poised to becoming the 44th Olubadan because he has been on the line for some time now. He has taken some titles that has put him on the stead to becoming the next Olubadan of Ibadan land. But quickly, let's race on to the Leadership Newspaper, which is talking about Kanu Emirate tussle, my palace gates breached by Bayero supporters, Emir Sanusi. We've known the tussle between these two brothers, and here we are again with this matter. I hope that the government can step in and quickly address it. And finally, on the front page of the Sporting Life, I'm sure the story with interest, Ria, because when you're talking about money, it's all Ria. Summer transfer AC Milan tempts Boniface with 53.9 billion naira. Ria, if I am tempting you with 53.9 billion naira, is that temptation? Really?
No, it's not temptation. I will fall before you even mention.
Before you mention the money.
But Osimhen is still here, and he's talking about agreeing terms with Galatasaray, who are saying they only have 50 million euros to pay, but Napoli is insisting on 75 million euros. Well, his choice to make.
Well,
Napoli needs to make a choice very fast, actually.
One thing I'll tell him is that his decision shouldn't be based on emotions.
It's based on money, actually.
No,
Money.
it should be based on
He should think about his future.
His future and money.
And money.
All right. After the break, we take a closer look at Nigeria's diplomatic efforts in St. Lucia and the mutual benefits for both countries. Stay with us.